1.5 mile ovals. After tonight, we only have one more true one left, and that is Homestead Miami Speedway at the very end of the year. But of course, Tim, you mentioned this Kentucky Speedway. It's a racetrack that has seen the calendar a couple of times, 5 different years in which we've gone racing at Kentucky, most recently back in 2016, where Kenny Huppy went to victory lane.
Yeah, we've had 5 different races. We've had 5 different winners in this at Kentucky Speedway. They've all been 167 laps as well, Evan. We're going to scale back to 134 here this evening. 5 races, 5 different winners. Ray Alfala, I believe, has had 5 top 4 finishes as well. But you look at his season, he hasn't finished in the top 4 this year in a race. So looking to really turn his season around at a racetrack that he's really familiar with. Robert Hall got his first win here back in 2012. Joey Brown got his 3rd and final PEAK Antifreeze Series win here in 14. And then Corey Vincent got his first win here back in 2015. That race only had 1 yellow flag in it. Quickest race we've had here at Kentucky. So it's been a while since we've been here, but looking at this racetrack, I'm looking forward to a barn burner of a show tonight.
It should be interesting to see how these cars handle on this racetrack. Of course, on the lighter end of the banking, some of these intermediate racetracks we go to have a lot of banking. The cars really get sucked down onto the track at the corners, and you can do a lot with it. Here, even with this package, I think it's going to take a tad bit more finesse, Randy. Possibly we'll see these cars strung out a little bit more than what we've seen over the course of a majority of these intermediate races, and I think that's kind of tried and true based on what we've seen so far in the practice session that's winding down. As drivers certainly staying in line and attempting to draft off of one another. However, I don't think it's going to be that 4 or 5 different lanes of opportunities like we've kind of been spoiled with the last couple of races.
I think you're right. The flatter banking that we have here at Kentucky, because of course this isn't the updated version. We're on still the older. This isn't the repave that we have here on the sim. It's going to make for a lot of dirty air. A lot of the drivers have been complaining about dirty air through the social media and saying it's going to be a lot of push. So keep an eye for that. People are probably going to have to run different lines just to get clean air. But that doesn't necessarily mean multiple lines are really going to work.
As always, qualifying took place earlier tonight, about 25 minutes ago. It wrapped up, but the drivers trackside as well just finished their final practice session of the night. So let's go trackside, take a look at tonight's Race Spot TV starting grid for round number 11 of this 2019 campaign. Front row will feature the number 18 machine of Bobby Zelensky, putting his Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota on pole with that 30.058, just barely squeaking out atop of Brad Davies. It'll be a Junior Motorsports counterpart to the outside in second position. Back on row 3, Kane Cook will get the number 3rd spot tonight along Zach Novak, rolling off from 4th position. Just behind them, Blake Reynolds rounds through your top 5.
There's Taylor Hurst on the outside. The JDR Graphics car will roll off in position number 6. Christian Chalner will roll off on the inside. And Jim Beaver Esports joining us here this evening. Michael Griglia in the 15 car. Ray Alfala rolls off in the top 10. Benjamin Nelson to his outside.
Brian Luther is going to start in the 11th spot with Corey Vincent in 12th. Chris Overland in 13th. Michael Conti in 14th. And Malik Ray will round out your top 15.
Malik Ray is going to have Michael Guest joining him on row 8, so it'll be the 16th spot on the grid for the 17 as the field rolls. Jimmy Mullis, Jarl Tien on row 9, with Nathan Lyon in 19th, and Logan Clampett scored P20.
Nick Ottinger's a former winner here. He starts 21st. Dylan Duvall 22nd. Brian Schoenberg 23rd. Jake Nichols 24th. And Logan Kress 25th.
Phil Diaz, who's currently sitting right on the bubble spot for the top 20 in points. He'll roll off 26th with Eric J. Smith 27th. The other new of the Jim Beaver Esports cars, Ashton Crowder, will be 28th. Chris Shearburn 29th, and Casey Kerwin in 30th.
Rest of the running order going to scroll across the bottom of your screen. Let's talk a tad bit more about this Kentucky Speedway. Of course, 1.5 miles in length, but that banking is very critical along with the older pavement. 17 degrees at 1 and 2, a little bit shallower down at this end of the racetrack in turns 3 and 4 for 14 degrees of total banking. We get set for the shortest Kentucky race we've ever seen in this series, 201 miles start to finish tonight as the pace car gets set to dive down to the safety of the pit lane. The field is in the hands of the number 18 Toyota of Bobby Zelensky as we say, let's go racing from Kentucky. Round number 11 is underway.
Great qualifying effort for Brad Davies on the outside, but caught sleeping a little bit on this start. Kane Cook to the inside already, and we're 3 wide in behind them. Ray Alfalla to the inside of Chalner, trying to pick up 1 spot and bring along his teammate. Those spin cars look good on the inside. Chris Overland trying to follow through too.
And all of that 3 wide simply because Guerrilla is the one going the wrong direction on the outside line. He'll find a spot now, tucking behind the 53 of Luza, and is able to get down and really not lose a ton of positions, but 2 by 2 that point on back. Battle up front sees Zelensky leading lap number 1. Kane Cook defending second. But here comes Zach Novak. Goes 4th to 3rd the opening lap. He wants P2 as well. To the inside of Kane Cook. Mustang stick on the inside. And the outside, it's got the run down to turn 3.
The field's still stacked up here. The new tires, you can sort of run side by side, but as these things start wearing out, expect this field to get single filed out probably over the course of the next 6 laps as they work off of turn 3. Kane Cook holds on to that second position. Zach Novak third behind them. Brad Davies, he's trying to hold off Blake Reynolds. The 88 already down 1 spot, trying to keep from going down 2.
And it is a new look number 30 machine of Blake Reynolds, the Team Dillon Esports entry, as his Chevrolet will complete the move on the inside. He'll slide up in front of Davies for the time being, but on board with the 88, you saw the crossover, not willing to sit around and lollygag, certainly wanting to put these tires to use. Well, they're fresh and well, they've got bite, but it was a good defense for Reynolds. He'll hang on an outside line, scored in 4th position, that time at the start-finish line.
And how about that new scheme for Reynolds as well? Great to see some new colors on that beneath number 30 for Team Dillon Esports. In behind, Brad Davies holding on to that spot. Taylor Hirsch trying to come to the front, and right in behind, as you see, a couple of drivers maybe poking to the inside, trying to make some moves, but really nothing going on within the top 10, at least right now. Looks like these drivers have found a place to ride. Malik Ray is the first one back there on that outside line, and we've got one battle a little closer towards the front of the field as you ride on board with Gariglia coming across the stripe here to complete lap number 4 and start lap number 5.
The onboard shot shows you how tucked up he was to the back of Lucy. Good as opportunity as any to give you a shout out and a call to Jim Beaver Esports. As Tim mentioned on the grid, Randy, the newest team to officially join this 2019 NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series. Their drivers, an all-rookie lineup of Michael Guerilla, Eric J. Smith, the winner earlier this year from Auto Club Speedway, and Guerilla right now carrying the torch for that team. On the inside of Lusa, trying to make a move for P8, so a full-hearted welcome to the newest team in the series tonight.
Yeah, and that's a great showing for him to have that number 15 car come into the series, and he picks up a driver, and that driver's working on putting Ryan Luza in the rearview mirror here as they work in towards turn 3. A little ways behind them, the 33 of Ben Nelson. We've been having some featured cars every single race that we possibly can. We've had Casey Kerwin a few times. Have a bit of a unique one for the 33 of Ben Nelson, a driver who races in VR, and when we get the opportunities, we will take some shots of what it looks like for Ben. You can see it's a little almost silly looking wearing that, but the actual immersion it gives you in the sim, we get the live pictures on the right-hand side. That's what Ben is actually seeing out of the VR headset he's got on, currently working on the back of the 16 of Chris Overland. And it's a unique view that only a handful of drivers are really able to give us.
And there are so many different ways that you could enhance your experience on the iRacing service, from, starting with a single monitor on a basic computer to upgrading, going to triples. But Tim, I promise you, nothing is quite as fun as driving in VR. I had the opportunity to do it at the iRacing booth at SEMA just a year ago. It's incredibly fun, and for Benjamin Nelson, that really gives you a good look at how much more immersive it is. I don't know if it makes you any faster, but it is certainly that much closer to the real thing, as iRacing is always continuing to work towards.
And speaking about working towards, here comes Zach Novak. Novak's been working towards the lead position here these last couple laps, Evan. He's been quicker than Bobby Zelensky, has closed that gap, but the last 2 laps he's got there, but he hasn't really been able to make a move on Bobby Zelensky since he's parked himself on the rear bumper of that Interstate Batteries Camry as they run down the back straightaway. 9 laps being worked on the board here. The top 2 have broken themselves away by about a second, all the way back to that Kane Cook car. Great qualifying effort for Kane this evening, but right now in 3rd, and he's got a distant front row seat to this battle in front of him.
He's the second off for the race leaders, but also with a half a second cushion over the likes of Reynolds and Hurst, so not an uncomfortable spot as there's a lot of green up towards the front of the field. Novak to the bumper that time, not forcing the issue, stays off behind him, and you can see Bobby Zelensky getting the left side tires down and onto the yellow line that time to get that car to rotate. Here is a run for Novak. He'll dive to the inside at lap number 10, the first battle for the race lead we've seen tonight. Can the 6 car make it stick? It's a pretty good exit out of 4, and it'll be a drag race to lead this time through inside the small advantage as Novak deploys the apron.
It's a good run, though, for Zelensky up top coming off of turn 4 in towards 1 and 2, though. Let's see what's going to be the preferred line as these tires start to wear off. The trend this year has been the top side is where it's easy to defend, and the 18 Zelensky able to clear the 6 coming off turn 2. So it might be the situation here, Evan, that as these tires get worn in, you basically are unable to carry really much speed coming off the bottom of the racetrack. We just saw that with the 6. Maybe Novak will check in about 10-15 laps. See if he's able to get another assault going on the 18, see if things change up for that 6 car, because he has been good on old tires pretty much all season.
Your leaders that time at 1, top it off at 176 miles an hour. It looks like Zelensky as slow as 153 in the center. You know, the big thing with this package, Tim, is there hasn't been a lot of tire fall off. Quarter entry speed and your slowest speed in the quarter hasn't been that much of a variance over what we have seen in past years with other packages. It's just been a lot more constant. Not tonight, though, again, with this older version of Kentucky, still that old, worn, and abrasive surface. These drivers are already looking at nearly a second and a half of fall off only through the first dozen laps.
Yeah, you really have to manage the fall off at this place and make sure that you have something for the long run. And right now it looks like Novak, at least for the top 2, has been able to do that a little bit better as you ride on board with Griglia for back there. Position number 8's got a little ways to go to work his way up towards the front, but a great effort so far for him this evening in that Jim Beaver eSports car. A little battle in front of him as they continue on. Look at this mess back here as a couple of drivers trying to get back up to the front of the field. There's Ray Alfala stuck in the middle of it. The 53 of Luza looks like to the inside as well.
And you'll notice in this group that orange number 4 of Nathan Lyon, that is not for position. Lyon was slated to start this race in 19th, but he is 4 laps down right now in 39th out of the 39 cars. The 21 machine there of Alfala got pushed up against the wall as they were fighting for some real estate, and Luza made a bold move in front of him. So just keep in mind that the 4 is not for position, but everybody else is clearly going at it, and Luza cutting no slack there to Alfala as he moves his number 53 machine up into a race high P10 as he tries to gain some distance on the outside line.
And it's a terrible situation for that number 4 of Nathan Lyon to come out in. Technical issues putting him a handful of laps down early here, but he gets buried in this pack where these guys fighting so hard as you just saw. He can't really duck out of the throttle anywhere. He's just locked in with a bunch of cars, and on a slightly new rubber after rolling off the pits, he's trying to work his way towards the head of this field, maybe get at least another lap up on him. He's going to try to get by the 33 of Ben Nelson and the 15 of Michael Griglia as those two fight for 8th and 9th.
And it's all kind of working out. You can see that all of the other cars who are on the quote-unquote older tires, the cars who are battling, for these top positions, they've got that wear, so they're running a little bit higher up the racetrack. That 4 machine's a little bit greener, that tad bit extra bite. He's able to make the bottom work, and therefore they're not really overlapping each other's lines. He's been able to navigate this pretty successfully. So we'll continue to monitor how he tries to work his way through, and he'll need a little bit of luck at a couple of yellows if he wants to get back into this race. On board again with Benjamin Nelson, taking a look out the front end. Michael Griglia is in front of him down on the inside. It's the battle for 8th and 9th position.
And he's got a little bit of a gap back to those drivers in behind him as they race for that position. And keeping a half eye on those drivers up in front as well, Evan. Zach Novak's tried to make a couple of moves the last couple laps, but we've seen this out of this package. You kind of get to the inside. You have to work that inside a little bit to try to get that outside line to waver a little bit. So they've been going back and forth the last couple laps. Zach Novak would get to the inside, try to make a move. Bobby Zelensky would roll the top and get back to the front. The driver that is on the move is behind them. It's Taylor Hurst. You see him in your shot right there. Hurst made the move on Kane Cook. He's now 1.2 seconds in behind Zelensky and Novak. So he is making some inroads from where he was about 10 laps ago. Taylor Hurst on the move, trying to get towards the front of this field and parked right now in position number 3. No pressure from behind, but speaking about behind, we might have a battle on our hands because Kane Cook has his hands full.
Oh, Novak on the 18 of Zielinski making a move for the lead up the inside of 1 and 2.
And that was a really late dive down into turn 1, so he's not going to be able to make that stick. He just didn't have the arc that he needed. And I think Bobby Zielinski very aware of both, I think, how both of those cars are struggling, moving, of course, that lane up. You see the 18 a whole lane higher than the 6 was in 3 and 4, leaving the inside open, kind of daring the 6 to make the move. I think Bobby Zielinski is pretty comfortable in defending, using the outside line to hold that 6 car off. Just to wrap up that point with Kane Cook, he's really under fire. It was not that long ago, 10 laps maybe, that he had almost a second advantage over 4th, 5th on the back, and now he's trying to hold off Challenger, who's on the inside. Not the greatest run off a 2 for the 37, but the 4 car is right there as well. Again, Lyon is not for position, so the battle here is between the 2 and the 37.
And they're trying to make it work as best they can here with that 4 car, Nathan Lyon. Again, trying to just cruising his way towards the front of this field as Kane Cook is going to be able to get a little bit clear of Challenger because of the way that traffic kind of presented itself and worked out. But I'm loving what I'm seeing from the front of the field of Bobby Zielinski. You just sort of mentioned it. He's just comfortable defending from that top groove. And Zach Novak, he's been breaking a little bit deeper into the corners every time. And I think what the 18's trying to do is make that 6 use his stuff up just a little bit. And if that happens, could really hand this to that 18 car. It's a big wiggle for both of them off of 4.
A big wiggle as they're really pushing it. They've stretched the gap to 1.2 seconds, but Taylor Hurst has been exchanging fast laps between he and those top 2. Seems like every other lap he's better. They counter, and of course when they get close to one another and fight for the race lead, it does bode well for the 74, but that was another big slide for Zielinski at a quarter number 2. You're looking at some of the other battles in a pack as well. Everybody really pushing the limit. It's funny that the race cars look tight, Tim, as the tires start to get that wear and they push up, but these drivers are trying to hook it around the inside there, that they are stepping it all the way out to the wall with just inches to spare oftentimes.
Yeah, some of these cars look like they're not handling very well right now with this fall off, and you see this battle on your screen right now for positions 4 on back, Challenger and Cook, but you even look at the leaders up in front. Bobby Zielinski slapped the wall a little bit going down to turn 3 2 laps ago and had that advantage. Zach Novak trying to reel him back in now. You see this battle on your screen there. They're on the edge of out of control right now, especially with this fall off. You really have to manage it, and these drivers up in front managing it a little bit better, but Kane Cook had that great starting position, falling back a little bit now, so we get a short run near the end. Kane Cook might be one to watch as you ride on board with Ryan Luza, currently in position number 10. He's got a hungry pack ahead of him.
It's been one of the more exciting spots on the racetrack, right in and around position number 10. Luza behind Nelson, who's behind Guerrilla, and all of this connects to that battle with Kane Cook that we've been following. The 30 machine of Blake Reynolds now, the most recent driver to complete a pass on the Round and Graphics Ford Mustang. So it is a position gain for Reynolds. He goes back to where he started this race in P5, and Kane Cook continues to be one of the drivers on the slow end of the stick, per se, for those on this run. He was one of the better cars, even, Randy, early in this run, but since then the 2 machines been slipping back, and it's certainly that he can't wait for green flag pit stops to come. Not all that far away, but not quite on the cusp yet as we're running now lap number 25.
Another driver trending towards falling down the order from where they started. The 88 of Brad Davies started this race in 2nd, currently sits 7th as we're going to log the 25th lap complete here, and he's trying to hold off that 15 car of Micah Gariglia, who of course comes in with that new Jim Beaver Esports organization and trying to put in a good effort is that number 15 car with the new team that he's getting to work with here as they work down the back straightaway, and things have single filed out a little bit. They were side by side a couple of laps ago, but now they get somewhat single file. You see the drivers starting to fan out and run different lines. You see 4 different lines of racing that the drivers are using, from Kane Cook all the way back to Ben Nelson. All 4 of them just really searching for clean air through the corners here.
That's the main objective in all of that, is to just get out from behind the car in front of you. Kane Cook goes low. It's a higher line for Davies and the lowest of lines for the 15 to Guerrilla. So everybody trying to get some air to the front of the race car, help that thing rotate off the quarter. All of them pretty even with that most recent exchange through 1 and 2, as everybody in front of them seeming to want to go for the much lower line, diving down to the inside. But I think Guerrilla is knocking on the door here for the 88 of Davies and Kane Cook. The 15's got to like where he's sitting right now. Hasn't gained anything from the start, but also hasn't lost anything, and he's got 2 cars within striking distance, only a quarter of a second ahead of him.
Really continuing to work on Brad Davies, and there's a couple of good battles here throughout this pack. Just a little ways behind them, Michael Conti's been working on Nick Ottinger. You see it at the top of your screen there. Conti's been down to the inside a couple times on Ottinger, trying to pick up a position, hasn't been able to do so at least yet. A little sideways off of corner number 3 and 4 there. The 8 car, it looks like the handling might be going away a little bit on the filter time, number 8 to the inside. Ray Alfala just in front of them, having to hold off one of the Renegades cars. That's Corey Vincent. He's won here before at this racetrack, so keep an eye on the 27 as we go through this evening. But great battles here throughout the pack as we work about halfway through. We're a little bit closer towards what would be our first green flag pit stop of the evening.
And it's been a very good start for Ottinger. The 8 machine of Michael Conti is going to get that spot back, slide up in front, but the 47 has picked up about a half a dozen positions, and if he can get back to the number 8 Chevrolet, I'm sure could make a solid play for another. But your concern there is always that, again, because these cars no longer have the ability to really get spread out, especially when you're running the low teens, mid-pack, whatever it may be in that area. You know, the 47 who goes, thought he had the move on Conti, just missed out on it. Now all of a sudden, Randy, he's having to play defense because that 60 to Chris Overland, Jarl Tien, they're now closer to his back bumper than he is to making a move on Conti once more. So that sense of urgency returns as Ottinger gets back up and on it.
It definitely does, but Ottinger has really been, I think, one of the stronger racers this season. Of course, he sits in the top 8 in points, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. He sits the top 8 in points, and he has 1 fewer races run than anyone else inside of the top 8, and I think, matter of fact, anyone else inside of the top 10. So he has 1 less race that he opted to get points. Just, pulled a goose egg after pulling a penalty, and he currently sits in a situation to get himself into the championship 4 that'll race, into the playoffs going in towards Darlington. So a fantastic season from the 47 is behind them. The 17 of Michael Guest has his hands full with the 66 of Jarl Tien.
Jarl Tien continues to keep the pressure up. In the number 66 machine, looks high, looks low, all of which Michael Guest just holds his ground. And look at the drive to the inside for the 27 car. That's Ashton Crowder as he comes aggressively on the bottom line. Thought he was going to snatch it away from Tien, can't do it. Tucks in line, he will reset and try again. So that 77 machine on the back of the 66. A battle for 18th and 19th, showing you that there are options all over the racetrack. Just to update you, though, on that battle for the race lead, Zach Novak again closed in on Zelensky, challenged a few times. The 18 machine has gotten his feet back underneath him. A big slide that time at a 2, but he has opened the battle for the race lead up. It's a 1.5 second advantage for the number 18 machine atop Zach Novak, who's still second. Taylor Hurst now creeping in from third. May have a play on the 6 car in just a few laps.
I think Bobby Zelensky might be a little bit better on the longer run than those two, but Randy did mention it as well. When Bobby Zelensky went to the outside, the inside was occupied by Zach Novak, using his stuff up a little bit more on the inside line, and Zach Novak has now fallen back into the clutches of Taylor Hurst. And as they do that, Bobby Zelensky gets a little bit smaller in the windshield as they work around this Kentucky Speedway. Keeping a half eye on the battle between the 27 of Corey Vincent, the 21 of Ray Alfala, and the 8 of Michael Conti. They have been going at it for the last couple laps. Corey Vincent has been working that inside line for the last 2 or 3 laps, kind of skates up the racetrack here at a corner number 4, back in behind Ray Alfala. But as they've been battling, it's closed in. Ryan Luza in front of them as well. So not only are they exchanging spots, there's one there. Michael Conti moves up 1. Ryan Luza is being caught by this little pack here, and this will now be a battle for position number 11.
And in this group, of course, there's still Ottinger, who's been trying to make moves. Jimmy Mullis, the 46 machine, maybe a tad bit quieter. He's just stretched himself in front of this group. He's also picked up 7 positions and wants to challenge Benjamin Nelson for P9. Good run that time at a 4. Thinks about diving to the inside. The lane's going to be there, and here comes the challenge for 9th on track as Mullis comes up the inside of Ben Nelson. Not going all the way down, though, so almost pushing that 33 up the hill a little bit. He'll still be there, and they will be nose to nose at a turn number 2. You can really see those cars at the outside. The handling is not getting any better. Everybody all kinds of loose, just showing you how hard they're pushing it. And a 46 car slides up over the nose to Nelson, and he cut him a break there by rolling out of the gas. And Mullis will get the spot, not without confrontation.
Yeah, the 46 there, he tried to slide job that a little bit entering turn 3, and Ben Nelson really gave him a little bit of a break there as behind. We're starting to see the battle of the champions start to pick up between Ryan Michael Luza, Michael Conti, and Ray Alfala all lined up. But the 27 of Corey Vincent, maybe not done fighting with Ray Alfala just yet. He gets a good run and closes, as the 8 actually gets another very good run on the 53 of Luza out ahead of them. So this trail, it'll be fun to watch the 3 current champions run in this series and are currently running in this series do battle. As the 53 of Luza, he's going to get a big wiggle off of 4. That's going to open the outside up to the 8 of Michael Conti. We've seen the inside not work for passing. Can the 8 make it hang out there on the outside?
So far, nobody has taken the dive down to the pit lane as we work lap number 38 of 134. And Tim, in the strategy scheme of things, 45 would be the magic number if you are going for a 2-stop strategy. 45 to 90, and that would get you just to the distance of 134. Is that what we think the drivers are going with tonight?
I believe that's what some of these drivers are thinking, but as we've seen before with this series, we might see some drivers go a little bit further, maybe anticipate a caution flag, hope they catch a little bit of luck, and let that play out from there. But I've been hearing some 2-stop strategies being thrown around here, so we'll see what transpires here throughout the evening. But Bobby Zalenski right now, it's about to be a 2-second lead on the rest of the field. Zach Novak has fallen back to about 2 seconds behind the field. So we'll see what Bobby Zalenski does on his strategy. We'll see what the rest of the field does here. And this battle continues to be one of the best on the racetrack, at least for the last 15 laps or so. Corey Vincent continues to hound the back bumper of that Wood Brothers number 21 of Ray Alfala. Awesome little battle here for position.
And the 27 wants to stick it out to the inside. He's got the positioning, just never got up alongside the driver's side of the 21 Ford. So he'll reset, come down into 3 and 4 as the sun tucks behind the clouds. Racetrack cools down just a tad bit as when it's out in the sun, track temps at 117 degrees. So this little bit of shade helps cool things down. Keegan Leahy, though, down to the pit lane. Going to kick off this cycle of service. And that is to the shorter end of what we expected the strategy to be. And he's got a handful of cars down with him as well, as this battle between the 27 and the 21 continues, which will translate into a top 10 spot shortly.
They still fight side by side, but you're right. It's a nice handful of cars we have on pit road. Logan Clampett down there. I see Logan Crest down there. Keegan Leahy, he rolls off at the moment. So pit stop window officially open. Maybe a little bit on the early side. We talked about the drop-off after about 10 laps being about a full second, maybe about closer to 15, being close to a full second. As we run, they've only dropped off another second here, kind of high 30s, low 31s for most cars at the start of the race. Now they're doing high 32s, so about 2 seconds over 40 laps. Not the worst, and it seems like we might get a lot of tire wear early in the run, Evan, but it seems to taper off, and near the end of the run, kind of get what we typically see week on week.
Yeah, it feels like we lost about a second and a half of fall off just in those opening 10 laps, and then to get that same amount of degradation, it was spread out along a much further period of time, basically for the following 30 laps. But this early pit does surprise me, Tim, and every race thus far up until we started racing at Chicago a week ago with this new green-white-checker system. In effect, it didn't really matter if you had a little bit of extra fuel, as Zach Novak will come down for the race from P2, I should say, dropping it out of the battle for the race lead. Bobby Zalenski still out there in the 18, but I mean, if you're going 45, in theory, this pit stop coming at 44, that would get you just to 135. Of course, you can probably go 55 max on fuel, but something these drivers and teams and crew chiefs have never had to calculate before is in effect, and that is you do have to plan for a little bit more than scheduled distance.
And it should force the hand of some of these leaders here the last couple laps. Here comes Zalenski down on the pit road. He slowed his pace a little bit the last couple laps compared to what Zach Novak was turning. So Zalenski will take the opportunity to head down pit road. Taylor Hirsch will lead his first lap of the evening here on lap number 44 into 45. But you're going to see the pit strategy change a little bit, I would think, on that second stint. But as you mentioned, if the numbers work out, they would barely get there to 134, 135, which is where you need to be at the end of the run. There's Benefield to the inside, getting one lap back on the 74 of Hurst. As Hurst is high on the racetrack at corner number 4. He'll stay on the racetrack this time to complete 45.
And no shock that the call is going to be for 4 tires and fuel, so everybody on the same page. Now down at the pit lane is Christian Challoner, the JTG Doherty race at entry, coming in from 3rd. And the race lead still in the hands of Taylor Hurst at the moment. He just passed and lapped to Bobby Zalenski, who's exiting the pit lane in the Interstate Batteries Toyota. How much of a difference is that one lap going to be? These drivers have to hug that very thin apron all the way around to the exit of turn number 2. Zalenski pulling out into traffic now. Here's the cars that he was racing against earlier, and all of them, having pitted earlier than he did, have closed the gap in just like that. All of a sudden, as Taylor Hurst gives up the number 1 position, there is a lot of company on the back bumper of the 18 car, and a caution flag flies at lap 46.
First time this year we've gotten a really crazy caution and timed with the pit stop cycles, and it's the 31 and the 77 who are stopped on the racetrack. That looks like turns 3 and 4 is Ashton Crowder. A little bit of contact. Oh, was that Logan Kress that got into the back of that 77 car? I believe it may have been. So little contact there. Somehow they keep that off the wall, but my oh my, what a bit of an incident there.
Kress had pitted a few laps ago. The 77 was just exiting pit lane, so he wasn't totally up to speed, and you saw the 31 machine push up. Certainly don't think that was intentional by Logan Kress, but he definitely drove into the left rear quarter panel of the NASCAR American NBCSN entry of Ashton Crowder, and that car went around with a pretty good bit of damage on the back end. And of course, the big topic of conversation now, Tim, is where's everybody going to cycle out to? Because we were just rounding out our green flag service. Taylor Hurst is currently being shown as your race leader. Again, he had just given up the number 1 position to come down to pit road, so we're going to have to wait for the scoring to cycle through, get an accurate look. Brian Schoenberg in the 55 that time was given the number 1 spot. The battle that would have assumed the race lead, where, of course, our top runners were before the cycle of pit service, was Bobby Zalenski, P5 on back. So Schoenberg, Hurst, Mullis, and Chalater end up in front of him.
Cattell led the field onto pit road on that caution flag when they came back and the pace car collected the field. The first driver that came down pit road and is already down and away is Brandon Cattell in the mane and tail number 80. He will return to the racetrack here, but as you said, we'll see where everybody cycles out. But it looked like for a few moments at least that Brandon Cattell might lead this field back to green. I think it's going to help him a little bit, though. He started in 34th and has now worked his way up into a potential position here to battle with these drivers within the top 10. As you see the 55 on your screen, Brian Schoenberg has had an up and down season with the Williams Esports team, and trying to keep himself within the top 20. Currently in the top 20 when it comes to the point standings. Playoffs might be a little bit far-fetched right now, but we've seen some weird things. We've seen some big comebacks happen in this series with 4 races to go. So Schoenberg knows he can do it. He's a veteran of the series, but coming down into pit road now to get service on that race car.
And surprising to see that, because Schoenberg was on pit road when the yellow flag came out at lap number 47. But even though he was already on pit lane, he's going to bring that car back down to pit lane once more. I believe he decided not to take service when he was on pit road for the sake of getting to back out and in front of the field. So Schoenberg was on pit road, did not get service. So this is his stop for tires. Taylor Hurst was also on the pit lane at lap 47. Same time Schoenberg was down there. However, the 74 did opt to complete his service. So he got his service. Jimmy Mullis as well in the number 2 spot, and Chalander just a lap before them on lap 46. So that's the difference between Schoenberg and these other 3, is Schoenberg is the only one of them that was on pit road but did not get the service right as the yellow came out.
And due to the timing of this, I want to talk about, look at the number of cars we have having to take the wave around because of the way this scrambled things. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 15 cars. Nearly half your grid have to take the wave around here in order to stay on the lead lap. So this yellow timing really, you see, look there, just out the onboard. Those are all cars who need to take the wave around in order to stay on the lead lap here. Don't come on pit lane unless you plan on losing a lap, and that driver's going to lose a lap. So that's that benefit, maybe needing repairs on that car, but he will go 1 lap down.
Yeah, that's a lot of cars in front of Hurst, and they are going to get that wave around when we come to take the 1 to go. So as the lights go on top of the pace car, that is a lot of cars right now that only have about a pace lap's worth of time. So looking like they'll have about a minute to go all the way around, get doubled up, and Something tells me that not all of them are going to be in the best position by the time this race starts, because there's that little bit of a sag before things actually get all the way through and into the right spot. But coming off of our first caution flag of the night, we get set for a restart. This portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by PEAK Antifreeze, the official antifreeze of the 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series. 34 cars total going to cycle back through to the lead lap. We will have 4 cars running 1 lap down, and then Nathan Lyon in the 4, still trucking. He was 4 laps down earlier. He was able to get 1 back on that first stint, so he's 3 laps down. 39th, everybody's still in this race, with the restart coming up 50 laps behind us. And Taylor Hurst, Jimmy Mullis, and Christian Challoner, a fantastic opportunity to make the most of a little bit of luck here as we go back. Green flag racing, and a good jump for the 74.
Taylor Hurst was coming on that last green flag run. The one thing he has now is clean air in the JDR Graphics number 74. He'll hop out to the lead. Look at Chalner taking a little peek to the inside of Mullis, battling for second. And Zach Novak's been able to get by the 18 of Bobby Zielinski as they come off of corner number 2. Little contact there. Brandon Cattell to the inside. We're 3 wide down the back.
No P's and Q's there. Zielinski bowls his way through the middle line. He's going to get in front of the 6 of Novak. Maybe no. The 6 fights back. 3 wide in front of him now as the battle for the race lead sees Challoner on the inside, Hurst in the middle, Mullis on the very outside. 3 wide into turn number 1. Inside the best positioning. No, Challoner can't get back into the gas. Reynolds is really tight. They're 4 wide behind the battle for the race lead as all of this goes down the back straightaway to turn 3.
We have 82 laps left to go in this race, and you'd think we'd have 2 laps the way some of these guys are running up and down this field. Still 3 wide. The 6 of Zach Novak has gotten by the 18, and he's making it a 4-car battle for the race lead. Jimmy Mullis is going to lead at the stripe as the 6 of Zach Novak. He works the outside of the JTG Dutry entry of Christian Challoner. He's going to stay in line, though, with the 46 as Taylor Hurst is going to lose that race lead on the bottom. It's going to be Jimmy Mullis who pulls clear. Now the 6 of Novak. He's going to slot on the outside of the 74.
And the 46 clear into turn number 3. So Jimmy Mullis ends up in the lead. Zach Novak positioning himself at the outside of Hurst for second. 3 wide behind them for P4 as Bobby Zielinski, who probably would have maintained his race lead had this caution flag not come out, needs to do something he hasn't done all night, and that is deal with traffic as he looks to the inside of the 6. Can't go there. The 37 of Challoner boxed him in that time at a 2. Now he's got the space. To the bottom line he goes.
That hole closed up really tightly for Bobby Zielinski, but now, as you mentioned, works the inside of Zach Novak. The one thing that he does not have right now, Evan, as you mentioned, he doesn't have clean air. He's had clean air for a majority of this race. Jimmy Mullis has been able to pull away just a wee bit from this battle as Taylor Hurst closes back in. As I say that, in corner number 2, Zach Novak up the track a little bit. Bobby Zielinski looked low, nothing doing there. Challoner in position number 5 for side-by-side battle. Looks like that number 80, Brandon Cattell, still looks racy to the inside, or at least took a peek on that number 30.
And what a story, of course. Cattell ended up being the first car down to the pit lane with us when we took yellow flag service because he had not yet cycled through to his pit stops. He right now is your biggest mover, having started in 34th position, running in P7. But Benjamin Nelson, the Team Dillon Sports entry, trying to fight on the outside. He'll get a good run that time at a 2 and to make it neck and neck now down to the far end of the racetrack. Cattell on the inside line in a good enough position to make a fight out of this as they've single filed out in front of them.
And Nelson just can't quite get the run he wants on that outside as they work through the trial of a couple drivers, taking all the way down to the apron here as they run through. The 62 Keegan Lay, your points leader, he was all the way down there. At the front of the field, things are starting to string out a little bit. The 18 starting to struggle with the dirty air. Let's look at the 33 of Ben Nelson. What a run. I think Blake Reynolds made a mistake on the bottom, and he went for the opening up top. Great move from the 33.
The whole outside line's got a big charge. The 33 and Nelson comes on by. Here comes Cattell in the 80 car on the outside as well. It looks like it was just a really bad exchange for the 37 and the number 30 car. Reynolds and Challoner both got real tight down low, and the big winner on all of that is Nelson, who rockets by Bobby Zielinski. Another position gained as he's shot out of a cannon for the 2nd lap in a row.
Ben Nelson rolls that top, moves up to position right ahead of Bobby Zalenski and leaves him behind to fight. Little cloud comes over the racetrack. Christian Chalner trying to take it away from Brandon Cattell, trying to pick up one spot and tries to close in a little bit closer towards the front of the field. Bobby Zalenski next up on the list for the JTG, number 37. Up in front continues to be Jimmy Mullis leading this race. Taylor Hirsch 2 lengths back, and now they have a little bit of a gap with everything going on behind them. There's a little bit of a gap back to that number 6, Zach Novak.
And that space is going to allow Nelson to take a deep breath and try to get back in here, but this 33 is on an absolute tear right now. Best car off of the restart, and Tim mentioned the shade and the shadows coming over the racetrack. I mentioned that the track temps a little bit ago, Randy, were up in the high 119 or so area, 118 degrees. It's down to 96. So this prolonged cloud coverage has really brought the temps down, tossed a little bit of extra grip into the racetrack, and here's your VR on board with Nelson to the inside of the 6. This one a fight for P3.
Oh, what a fun camera angle this is a 33 of Ben Nelson trying to get the run on the bottom, not quite able to do so. And he's going to just get right in line here from behind this 6 car. Let's see if he can maybe set up another move here in towards turn 1. Not going to happen, but you're right. With all this overcast and all the clouds, there's actually the 37 of Challenger in the background. He makes a move on Bobby Zalenski as well, as the fight for the lead is about to become 4 cars strong. All these clouds have really brought the temps of the racetrack down, and that's going to affect the way these cars handles. We're 61 laps into this, and through the first 55 laps, the track was hot. It's now cooled off, and now that sun starts to creep back out a little bit. Temps might start going back up.
And I am surprised. I know Bobby Zalenski's not out of this yet. He's only a second off for the car in front of him, but as Challenger goes back to the inside, I really thought that this Interstate Batteries Toyota would be a lot sharper off for the restart. But again, traffic is not something he's dealt with. He looked fantastic when he was up there defending the clean air. Was the best car on track, and again, without that yellow, would probably have a lead with a handful of seconds in his back pocket. Instead, he's just trying to stay top 5. Challenger is really working him over, as now your top 4 have all lined up single file and pack them within 0.4 of a second of each other. It's Mullis, Hurst, Novak, and Nelson. There goes the 33 to the inside of the 6 again, but it's not going to happen in 1 and 2.
Got to the inside, but really didn't have a run to make it work on the inside of the 6 of Zach Novak. Jimmy Mullis, Taylor Hirsch continue to lead, and look at the sun coming back out around this racetrack as you ride on board with Ben Nelson, looking at those 3 ahead of him and trying to get to the lead position. One of the quicker race cars here on this run. But back to your point for a moment, you talked about that number 18 of Bobby Zalenski as 6 of Zach Novak goes to the inside. What a run that he gets trying to clear Taylor Hurst in the 74. Can he get up the racetrack? A little slide job here. Hurst going to have that line on the outside and going to battle with him back for position number 2. I was about to say, Zalenski and Hurst, as you ride on board with Ben Nelson, have long run race cars, or at least we saw that in the first run. 20 to 25 laps in, those cars seem to get a little bit quicker. So we'll see if that happens here, and see if that happens to Robbie Zalenski in that dirty air, as Ben Nelson got a great seat for this battle in front of him. He's looking to the outside of Zach Novak here now as they dive it into 1.
And it is a bit of a risk for Novak to have made this move to the inside. Again, Nelson was trying to pass him on the inside multiple times, couldn't do it, and he just tucked up behind the 6. But I mean, this move to the inside, if it doesn't pay off for Nelson, or doesn't pay off for Novak, could effectively give Benjamin Nelson a de facto spot, because now the roles are reversed. It's the 33 on the outside with the momentum, and just like that, he moves into position number 3. Big run for Taylor Hurst now. He'll dive low on Jimmy Mullis for the top spot, and you have to feel that Nelson's going to sit this one out as well and wait. Does he fill the gap on the outside to the second time in a row? Yes, he does, and these drivers are just helping the 33 by going to the inside and giving him that top line, Randy, which is clearly where he likes to put the 33 car.
See exactly what happened. Taylor Hurst really just looked in the rearview mirror at Zach Novak and say, "Ha, you thought you were good giving away 3rd place? I'm going to throw 2nd place away and give it to Ben Nelson." We've seen it a couple times. You cannot make that inside line work once we get 10 or 15 laps into the run. Zach Novak tried it on Bobby Zalenski in the opening stint. Now Taylor Hurst tried it, and he's busy stuck defending on the bottom as the 33 of Ben Nelson will take 2nd away. This is playing out, even though it's not close and tight pack racing, it's almost a little bit like a plate race. You have to pick your spots. You just can't say, you know what, I'm going to send it into 1, get up the inside, because that bottom line is not where you want to be. It is a lot smarter to sit and ride if you cannot make that pack fast, especially with as many laps as we have left to go. The 33 of Ben Nelson, he just got gifted 2 spots. As the 6 of Novak, he wants to pick that spot up on the outside, and he's going to get back to 3rd.
And not to say that he's not working here, but he didn't do anything. He just stayed in line behind Mullis, ran his line. Both of those cars got out of his way, and Benjamin Nelson now finds himself in the number 2 position as we come by this time to take the cross flags and halfway home in tonight's Kentucky 200. A dive to the inside for Zach Novak to take P2 back, taking advantage of a small mistake and a rare one at that at a Nelson. Going to keep this fight inside of the top 4 alive. But with that being said, let's take a look at our iRacing midway race break. It's brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally sanctioned series by the likes of NASCAR and many more. At lap number 69, Jimmy Mullis is your race leader. 2 car lengths atop of Zach Novak, who scored in P2. Benjamin Nelson is still 3rd. Taylor Hirsch challenging from the number 4 spot, and Christian Challenger closing in from P5. This is the battle that we have been watching and will continue to follow through this portion of the race. Behind them, though, Bobby Zelensky is 2nd back. Your pole sitters in the number 6 position. Brandon Cattell is 7th. Michael Conti right now running in the number 8 spot. He's got Corey Vincent behind him in 9th, and Garrett Lowe rounds out your top 10.
Yeah, great run for Lowe up from 33rd as you keep a half eye on that battle for the lead in front. Blake Reynolds and Ryan Luza duking it out for position number 11 right now. Keegan Leahy continues his march up towards the front of the field. Nick Ottinger, Kane Cook has fallen to position number 15, and Brad Davies has fallen to 16th right now. Logan Clampett, Ryan Lowe, Ryan Schoenberg, and Michael Grillia rounding out your top 20 right now in that 15 car.
Jarl Teen in the 66, 21st. Michael Guest, 22nd. Ray Alfala, 23rd. Qualified decently. He's fallen 14 spots. Dylan Duvall, 24th. Eric J. Smith, 25th, with Casey Kerwin, Nick Shelton, Phil Diaz, Jake Nichols, and Malik Ray rounding out your top 30.
Final couple of cars still on the lead lap. Chris Overland is scored in 31st position. 32nd is Cody Bias, with Chris Shearburn and Casey Tucker 33rd and 34th. Completes the amount of cars that are on the lead lap. 1 lap down is Ashton Crowder, 35th. Logan Kress, 36th, with Adam Benefield in 37th, and Timmy Hill in 38th position. And then it is just Nathan Lyons still down 3, 39th position, and all the way at the back, no drivers to the garage thus far. That's been a look top to bottom at your iRacing midway race break as we go side by side for the race lead again. Novak to the inside of Mullis. The 46 defends once more. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com to sign up today and use promo code PR-eNASCAR 2019 during checkout, and you can get your first 3 months as a new member for just $10. Again, that's PR-eNASCAR 2019, and that is valid on new iRacing memberships only. Battle for P1 continues to rage on, but guys, a lot of battles all the way through the top 10. How about Taylor Hurst in 4th spot? He's under attack, makes the move on Benjamin Nelson. So just as we thought the 33 machine had this thing set up to go to the point, that car starts to struggle once again as we get to the long run.
We're at that point where fall off begins to become a factor, and some of those drivers that can manage that fall off a little bit better are going to start working their way a little closer to the front. We saw that on Taylor Hurst's car on the first run of this race, and seemed to get a little bit better as we hit lap number 20, lap number 25 of the run, and reeled in those drivers in front. But on the opposite side, we also saw Zach Novak fall off a little bit at about lap 30 on that run, Evan. But right now, he's on the back bumper, the 46 of Jimmy Mullis. We haven't seen this pressure for the lead for a while, at least on that long green flag run. Mullis was able to get out in front, and now that Acorn's number 6 on the back porch, ready to try to make a move. But he's gone to the inside a couple of times. He's had some great runs, just hasn't been able to make that move on your leader as the Sim Seats number 46 leads us down the back.
And maybe if he can keep the pressure up at some point here, he'll catch Jimmy Mullis with a little bit of an out of position to quarter entry and maybe able to get that spot away from him. But the way it shows now, if Mullis can stick up top, it is going to be awfully difficult for Zach Novak to complete the pass by pushing that car that again now is starting to fall off more and more lap by lap to hold on the inside, be able to get back into the gas and actually mount a real charge. But the good news is for these two, at least, is it is no longer a 5-way battle for the race lead. They've stretched about a second. That's the distance there to the cars on the right-hand side of your screen, where Taylor Hurst in third still has his hands full with Christian Challenger in the 37, about a 2-car length disadvantage off of him.
And the 18 of Bobby Zielinski, he's actually been putting in some good lap times and was reeling in that trio when they were fighting a little bit hard, but they've sort of gotten things situated and spread out, and Bobby has not been the quickest of that group for a number of laps now, so maybe the 18 starting to somewhat plateau. The 6 of Novak showed the nose once again in towards 1 and 2, but once again it doesn't go his way. So the 6 of Novak still being aggressive, and I like making that 46 have to work for it, but I don't know if I like really eating up those tires on the inside line. That said, we still have another pit stop left to go in this thing, so maybe just being aggressive here is the 6, try to force Jimmy Mullis into some sort of mistake, but that 46 looks rock solid at the moment.
Jimmy Mullis in his third year of competition in this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series, 1 career win to his name. It came last season from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Tim, a racetrack that certainly a lot flatter than Kentucky, but we talked about how flat this racetrack is compared to some of the intermediates.
Sorry, I was watching Keegan Leahy, and he just got all sorts of sideways up the inside of the 77 of Crowder.
His way back at 14th spot where there was a 2-way battle going on. Turn 2 seems to be the place where a lot of those big wiggles have come from. I haven't really seen a lot of cars getting that uncomfortable before. They can kind of unwind the wheel a tad bit kinder. Turn 2 seems to be a fun spot on track, and it's Leahy on the inside of Ottinger for 13th. Just can't make the inside stick. Both of them that time with the back end a little squirrely.
Yeah, this is a great little mess back here. Corey Vincent, Nick Ottinger, Keegan Leahy, Kane Cook, Ashton Crowder among those that are back there battling for that position. Crowder now to the inside of Kane Cook as they go at it for position. But middle of this run, trying to figure out what your car has and what you can do with the dirty air in the middle of this pack. We've seen some drivers struggle a little bit in the second half of these green flag runs, but right now, it looks like the 99 car might also be taking a little look to the inside. Logan Clampett starting to come to life as well back there. Keep an eye on that battle up front, but how about these battles middle of the pack? They continue to impress as the Burton Kligerman Esports cars get ready to go side by side.
And just off of the pit lane that time, Brad Davies pitting from the number 16 position. He's already completed his service. He's back out and onto the racetrack. This is way on the far end of the fuel strategy. We said 55 is probably the max, and well, there's 53 laps to go in this race when he came down to pit road, so that's a little bit of a strategy play for the 88 machine to try to get something cooking here. As up front again, Novak way down low, swings it out wide, just can't break within that extra car length off of the race leader.
I don't know if I like this strategy call we've had a couple cars come down pit road, and I just don't think it makes any sense, especially from the 88 of Brad Davies. It's, like you said, it's on the extreme far end, and if you're planning to make another stop from here, I don't know why you wouldn't just delay another 10 or 20 laps. I think the fall off is too severe to really set yourself up for an extra pit stop potentially to have to deal with, as the 46 of Mullis still holding off that 6 of Novak, and everyone continues to somewhat close up a little bit. The 33 of Nelson has fallen just a short way, and suddenly the 18 of Bobby Zielinski only about 4/10 back off that 33.
Luza also down to pit road, so a top 15 car also making that early pit stop strategy. Wow. But it appears that the top 5, top 10 at least, want to stay out here, and I'm thinking lap 90 to 95, probably a more realistic option. You can go past the 90, that's kind of the marker we were talking about, but that's before the caution flag came out after that first cycle of green flag service, so it does shuffle things up a little bit and certainly adds a lot more leeway, short ways and long ways, and obviously some drivers are taking advantage of it on the early part of this as we get set for that second and final cycle of green flag pit stops in this race. This portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Blue Def Diesel Exhaust Fluid, certified pure #1 diesel exhaust fluid, as all of these battles continue, and it'll be fun to see who's the first for the top 10 to make the dive at lap 85.
Yeah, Michael Conti's already come in from the top 10 in car number 8. He brought Schoenberg along with him down there, and I think back Brandon Hastings on the top of the box of the 8 car, and Brandon has made a couple of strategies calls in this series that have put his drivers into victory lane. So that's why they're down on the pit boxes and we're up here trying to make sense of it all. But you would have to think that maybe Conti, Schoenberg going to try something, maybe throw a Hail Mary. They don't necessarily. Conti has a really good race car right now. Maybe he doesn't have a top 5 race car in his mind. Maybe he's trying to get there with a little bit of strategy, or maybe they're anticipating a caution flag or something of the sorts coming out here on this round of green flag pit stops. But nonetheless, the 46 of Jimmy Mullis continues to lead with Zach Novak in second, and a little bit of a gap back to Taylor Hurst, but Hurst is still hanging along there. He's had a consistent race car within the top 5 all night long. As you ride on board with Ben Nelson, he's coming down into pit road. We're going to see a live pit stop here with VR.
He heads into the box, and it is going to be 4 tires and fuel. You see the crew go over to the right-hand side. Car's going to get jacked up. The right side tire is always on first. Now back over to the left-hand side. Left side's also. He's got a small opportunity to take a breather. Looks like he's chatting with his crew, and that is a 4-tire stop at iRacing in VR. Back off for Benjamin Nelson, and that is one of the highest running drivers that we've seen make that play, as he was scored in 5th.
Yeah, so that's definitely an early call here for the pit strategies, and I still don't think I like this early call, and I kind of want to go to Tim on this. Tim, do you think this could be some drivers overreacting a little bit to some people like the 88 coming down so early? Ryan Luza doing the same as well, almost somewhat in reaction. I think some drivers really being, over-aggressive on the pit stop, trying to cut off the strategy of others. Think back to what we saw at Las Vegas. The short stops didn't really work out, and we're seeing similar sort of tire wear here tonight at Kentucky. I don't know if any of this makes sense, and I think there's people trying to be over-aggressive rather than just going with the standard strategy that was going to work. That caution didn't really upset the timing at all.
Randy, I think it is a reaction, but when you look at the drivers that did come down pit road, Brad Davies, Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberg, have worked together in the past on pit calls, so I almost want to think that it is a reaction, but I also want to think it's maybe they don't like where they're running right now. Maybe they think they can get a little bit closer to the front by pulling something different strategy-wise here. Those guys up in front, at least for the most part within the top 5, have yet to come down into pit road. Mullis, Novak, Hurst, and Zielinski have been 4 of the drivers that have run up front all night long. They still have yet to come down pit road, and I say yet because here comes Zach Novak onto pit road in car number 6. So yes, it's going to eventually force the hand a little bit earlier compared to what we thought we were going to see from some of these leaders. But Evan, I think it's more of those guys in the back trying to better where they are currently running right now, and in turn forcing the hand of guys like Bobby Zielinski.
The one thing that stayed true to our first cycle is the second-placed car on a racetrack came in before your leader, and if you remember, that's what allowed drivers to catch up to Zielinski before the yellow kind of ruined that fight. So Novak pitting in from the number 2 spot. Jimmy Mullis is going to immediately respond. Here he comes in the Sim Seats Toyota. So he's on pit road now at lap number 91, which is more so on par with what I think we were expecting to see as they get set to make a 45-lap run to the end of this race. It'll be 4 tires and fuel, no doubt. Now's the fun part. Garrett Lowe cycles through. He's your race leader. Brandon Cattell currently second.
And remember what happened that last time that we had green flag pit stops. We got a quick caution, and it completely shook up who we were talking about inside of that top 5. So the same window opens up. The likes of Garrett Lowe, Brandon Cattell, Keegan Leahy, Yarl Tien, those top 4, also even the 21 of Rayon Fala, he's out there trying to make it happen. As the 28 of Garrett Lowe, he's actually going to hit pit road, as well as the 62 of Keegan Leahy. So they're going to bow out for maybe this opportunity, but they catch a caution here. These drivers that are playing the long game, trying to go as long as they can on this tank of gas, they will be the beneficiaries. And well, it's mostly people that have been locked mid to tail end of the pack all race long. Can't really blame them taking this shot.
In names we haven't talked a ton about, we have mentioned Cattell and Tien, but how about the Rayon Fala, who had a somewhat promising start but has struggled back since. Dylan Duval, Jake Nichols, those drivers from the mid-20s. As you can see, the big speed difference as Duval will come down pit road in the number 42 machine and get his final bit of service on the night. And of course, when you're not pushing the fuel to the 55 limit max, then you do have some extra space for that possible overtime green-white checker if that scenario were to present itself. But where is all of this going to end up? Top dozen or so cars are the ones that we are waiting for them to cycle through, and now even more of them are going to get back cycled through in the running order here, and you're no longer going to be a lap down now. Drivers start to return to the lead lap. But, Zach Novak's kind of the driver that we were watching. Christian Challoner, Ben Nelson, Blake Reynolds, all of these cars have picked up spots. In fact, I think Brad Davies, by that very early pit stop, will be the race leader when all this cycles through. We'll see if it even lasts that long, because Michael Conti is closing in on him. Right now, this is the battle for position number 8, but it will become the battle for the race lead.
As everybody cycles through here in a bit, but Brandon Cattell and Jarl Tien among those still on the racetrack. And you mentioned guys like Ray Alfala and Dylan Duval out on the racetrack. Jake Nichols would be one of those I would throw in here as well. You're talking about drivers in and around the top 20 bubble. So anything that they can do to potentially catch a caution, potentially catch some good luck going their way, they're going to try to do it, as the 20 of Jake Nichols gets passed by the 24 of Bias on the racetrack. You got all kinds of different strategies right now. Cars coming, cars going as you ride on board with Michael Conti, looking up at Ben Nelson right ahead of him, and Brad Davies as they go at it side by side.
And it is a good run on the inside for the 33 of Nelson. Got about a half a car length up on him on a turn 2, but the outside will keep Davies in contention for this. And Benjamin Nelson's in a very good spot here in the Digital Ally entry as he rolls it at a turn number 4, makes the pass for the spot right now. The 88 of Davies comes back to the bumper, dives low. Right now that puts him in position 7. Again, still waiting for everybody else to come down pit road. And here's Novak, the 6th car now into the mix. 6 cars on top of each other now inside the place to be. Those fresh tires are working for Novak. He got 2 spots the last lap and wants another now in 3 and 4.
6 and Novak goes to the inside, and he's going to pick that spot up and will immediately go to work on that number 33 Dillon Esports Chevrolet of Ben Nelson. Really had a big moment as I believe it was Jimmy Mullis, nearly got hooked by the 74 of Taylor Hurst going into turn 1. The last trip through as this tight gaggle keeps itself up, and Novak, look at that, easily around the 33 of Ben Nelson already. And see a couple people mention it in chat, and we haven't talked about it yet, Evan. Of course, we saw the first opportunity for it last week. It didn't pan out. The green-white-checkered still potentially a factor here. Tonight, we've seen one early caution that came at a bit of an awkward time, and, well, maybe it would be a nice race to have this happen where the tires seem to be all over the place. A late race restart with 2 laps to go, that would surely shake the tire strategy up for everyone. Some people probably taking 4, some people taking 2, and probably others gambling on old tires should that pan out.
And that's why the fuel's so important. There's, based on what we've seen in series history, there's always at least somebody who says, "No, I don't need fresh tires. I'll run these 35-lap-old ones for a green-white checker." And just like that, of course, it doesn't normally end all that well. But certainly 4 would be the smart call. 2 is the gamble. Somebody would be destined to take none if we get to that point. But again, these oval races all year long, again, up until when we got to Sonoma 2 weeks ago, those first 8 races of the season, Tim, all saw margins of victories on the ovals less than 1 second, and that was without any overtime, without the green-white checker system in effect, although a lot of those were some late race restarts. So they have been very compelling finishes to these races all season long, and the strategy, I think, is the one that's kind of taken the cake this evening to see who ends up with the right decision, as we're now past lap number 100 and inside of 35 to go.
You see a battle on your screen, Michael Conti and Bobby Zielinski going at it. Down into corner number 1, Bobby Zielinski going to prevail with this spot and move himself a little bit closer towards the front of the field. That would be the battle for position number 9 right now. We still have drivers that are out on the racetrack that have yet to come down pit road. Brandon Cattell leads the field. Jarl Tien in position number 2, and mired in a little bit of traffic right now ahead of him. Jake Nichols all by himself right now in a 3rd. Little ways behind is Chris Overland in 4th, and Phil Diaz in position number 5. Then back to those drivers that did come down pit road, led by Zach Novak, and led right now by about a 1.5 over Christian Challoner. There is Taylor Hurst to the inside of Michael Conti, looking to pick up 1 more position, and this is really the battle in behind Zach Novak, Christian Challoner, and the rest. There goes Jimmy Mullis to the inside of the 18. Bobby Zielinski looking to pick up 1 more.
He wants to get another spot back. Bobby Zalenski just wants to get back into this thing, but he is a couple of seconds off of the lead car on this strategy. And Zach Novak, who has been able to make the move on Challenger and stretch this thing out a tad bit, still waiting on Cattell, Tian, Nichols, Overland, and Diaz to pit. They cannot go the distance, but are really trying to stretch this one out and catch a yellow.
Well, a couple of them decide to call it quits as both Jake Nichols and Chris Overland, they come down on pit road together, a Ford and a Toyota. I don't think there's any love between those two, but they come down as if they're teammates. So the 33 of Ben Nelson is going to be quickly involved in a fight with Blake Reynolds. Blake has been about a tenth to a tenth and a half quicker every cycle around the racetrack, so that won't be a fight that I would expect to last particularly long as Ben Nelson runs the middle, and Blake's going to run that bottom line, try to set the run up off of 2.
See if he can set him up and pull the trigger as they race down the back straightaway. It's for 6th and 7th at the current moment. Phil Diaz comes in. He gives up the number 3 spot as well. Jarl Tian down pit road. Cattell is in. So this may just put a neat little bow on it all. And Zach Novak has now cycled back through to the race lead. All those cars that had stayed out had gone as far as they could. There's a lot of them on the pit lane as you see Overland and Nichols now just exiting pit road as they come in for a little bit of an insurance stop.
And there's the Team Dillon Esports cars on your screen battling it out. Benjamin Nelson going to take the spot over his teammate Blake Reynolds and move him up one more position, back up to position number, what should be position number 3, I believe, when this all cycles out. But Zach Novak is your leader, and is your leader by about 2 seconds over Christian Challenger. And then this battle is about 3.5 seconds in behind, and now they have a third. Here comes Jimmy Mullis, going to make it a 3-way battle for position number 3 as they dance at a corner number 2.
And great to see those Austin Dillon team-owned cars racing with one another in the 46 of Jimmy Mullis in here trying to break that party up as they all fight for what's left over. That fast 75 to the inside, the Mode Motorsports car you can see rocketing through is not for position. That's Phil Diaz, who just pitted, so he has fresh tires. That's why he is blowing by these guys at the inside. Don't worry about that. What you're looking at is the battle for third on back. It is 3.6 seconds off your race leader. Zach Novak is 2 seconds clear to Christian Challenger in second spot. Looking to make the run to the end now here. Again, all these cars good to go the distance.
And this group of cars, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. The 18 of Bobby Zalenski, he's getting into this fight. Look at the 55 of Schoenberg. He's on new tires, but this is going to make things really dramatic because these guys work side by side of Jimmy Mullis and Blake Reynolds. And Jimmy Mullis is going to get that pass done for third. Keep an eye on the 55 on the new tires. Trying to cycle through is Taylor Hurst and Ben Nelson. They stay side by side. In the background as the 18 of Zalenski tries to reel them in and put them in the rear view as well.
Schoenberg made an early pit stop in the cycle and had to come down pit road just recently at lap number 100, so that's why he is going around this group of cars. Again, that's not for position. He will race back from 2 laps down to 1 lap down, assuming he can get back and around all of our leaders. But the fighting continues with Taylor Hurst on the inside line. The JDR Graphics entry alongside the 33 machine at Elson, trying to work the top side. You've also got, obviously, Bobby Zalenski in this mix. That 4th car is another one that is not for position. That's the 31 Logan Kress, who's going to try to squeeze by on the inside, and he'll make it 3 wide as he does so.
Excuse me, pardon me, coming through the 31 of Logan Kress, trying to pick up a little bit of track position here at least, but these drivers are battling hard for a position, so he's got to be extremely careful here as he goes down into corner number 1 and 2 and tries to keep it underneath that seam, and it gets a little bit sideways. 33 into the fence off of corner number 2. That's something you don't want to do, as Ben Nelson had to catch it, and you can see on board he's got some work to do now.
I mean, I think Taylor Hurst technically gave him space, but it wasn't much more than the width of the race car, and it was a little bit of a late recognition. I think he wanted to push up in front of him, and a good job by Nelson to lift, not wreck, and then also by Bobby Zalenski to also get out of the throttle and give him space to recover, or that easily could have been some contact and a second yellow at the night. Instead, we're still green, and Taylor Hurst's, I wouldn't call it blocking, but spirited exit of the quarter maybe is going to keep him in P5 and get him some breathing distance.
he was going to try to clear that 33 any way he could, whether anyone liked it or not, or if anyone thought it was nice. The 74 was trying to put the car there as best he possibly could. Now, the 33 of Ben Nelson, he's going to have to fight with Garrett Lowe in the 28 car. Haven't talked about that Renegades Ford Mustang really most of tonight, and look at the run. He gets up the inside, maybe a little bit of damage on that 33. Should make this a little bit of an easier fight as Ben, though. He's still going to fight back on the outside, but not quite able to get the run off the corner he was earlier in the night. So Garrett Lowe, I think, somewhat advantageous, or has the advantage in this situation, and he'll get clear on the entry into 3 as the 33 will drop back another spot. And now look at the 8 of Michael Connie in 9th. He has to deal with that 47 of Nick Andrew, who gets a big run off of 4 and is going to use the slipstream for Jarl Tien to carry him into 1.
And again, Tien in this group is not for position. It's the 47 of Ottinger versus the 8 of Michael Conti. Ottinger wins the fight. He'll take that spot. The 8 machine will try to come back with the run at a 2. Does he dare put the filter time Chevy back to the inside? No. I think kind of recognizing Ottinger just the better car, not forcing the issue, and the 47 will climb up into position number 9. And then also just to wrap up that point in front of them, tip of the cap to Garrett Lowe. Started 33rd in this race, running right now P7. He's up 26 from the start of the night, and he is the biggest mover, only closely rivaled by Keegan Leahy, who's up 22 spots, right now running in 13th position, and he's racing with Brad Davies.
Yeah, Garrett Lowe in that number 28 car was in the top 10 at the midway race break and has continued to pick up positions here on this green flag run. The next one will be Bobby Zielinski, so a little bit harder as you see the battle on your screen there, and that is a mess of cars. Brad Davies is in this battle. That is the Logan Clampett, number 99 car. You got Michael Guest in here as well, and Michael Guest celebrating a birthday today, so happy birthday to the Roush Fenway driver as he battles with the 88 of Davies, the 99 of Logan Clampett. This is the 13th place battle on your screen, and Mikey's going to the inside, 3 wide down the back.
To make this move work, as these drivers trying to get just a little bit more before the clock runs out. It's outside the top 10, but they're going at it 3 wide at a turn 4. The 88 of Davies up top. It's Clampett in the middle. To the very inside is Michael Guest, and I think that middle line may be the best line as the 99 of Clampett clears on the bottom. He's not going to get all the way by Davies, though. In fact, they're both going to pester him all the way back down to 3. The 17 now tucking in line.
Michael decides discretion is the better part of valor here, as you have Michael Gariglia and Kane Cook. They're joining towards the tail end of this fight as well. A little bit of a wiggle from Brad Davies off of 4, but he's going to be able to hold on to it. Drivers have been so loose at both ends of the racetrack, off of 2 and off of 4, all day today, and they've done so well holding on to their race cars. Then towards turn 1, Logan Clampett stuck down on the bottom. Can he get clear of that number 88 up the top? I think he's cleared at the moment, but he opts not to slide up, and the 80 of Davies will get the run off of 2.
This is right now the closest battle inside of the top 15 as Clampett tries to work the bottom, and that 17 against him after not winning out in this exchange at the bottom didn't give up. Look at the looseness of Brad Davies as that car twitched a couple times at a 4, but impressed to see Guest not really give up. He lost out in the 3-way battle, but gets right back into the mix, starts to draft off these cars, and everybody's going to have to look out for the 2 car. Look at Kane Cook on a rail on the very inside.
Cook pitched it in deep that time down into corners number 1 and 2. It did not stick. Ultimately there, the 17 at Guest back to the inside. He's had to stick handle it the last couple laps as you ride on board with Kane Cook. He's got a great seat in this battle ahead of him as Gariglia on the outside also battling it out with these drivers. Michael Guest, though, back to the inside trying to make it happen. Logan Clampett holding the middle. Brad Davies up high as they run it down into corner number 1, and the 17 pitches it in deep.
And trying to make that very inside work. Of course, you can see where that rubber has been put down over the course of these 119 laps of action. Randy, there's pretty much no rubber down on that very inside. You can see it's still that lighter complexion when you're right up against the yellow line. And look at the 99 squeeze him there in the center, not wanting to help him out at all. But somehow, by sheer determination, Guest is actually making the inside plausible.
He's holding there, but he's off the corner. He's not getting any move done as Clampett is going to, for the first time, sort of be clear entering 1. But look at the run he gets. through the center of 2, the 17 a big wiggle, the 2 of King Cook. He's got to look out as he gets right up to the top of the racetrack, cycles behind the 15, a little bit of contact with one of those cars to the wall, and Michael Guest says, you know what, I feel pretty comfortable down here. We're going to make it 3 wide. How about nearly 4 wide with the 15 off of 4?
They are giving it everything they have. You're not missing anything up front. It's still Zach Novak leading by 1.7 seconds. This is the battle for 13th on back as Clampett again to the inside. The 17 a little tight, walks it up the hill, and a big slide that time at a 2 as he ends up in front of Cook, and the 2 cars now boxed in. Nowhere for him to go.
And the 99 of Logan Clampett once again goes to the inside of the 88. Out of corner number 4, Brad Davies trying to hold that position. The 99 of Clampett set him up. And now the 17, where does he go? Does he make a move? Down into corner number 1, Kane Cook right in behind, waiting for something to happen as they go into the shaded portion of this racetrack. Down in corner number 1. Up the racetrack goes Clampett. To the inside goes Davies. Clampett sideways. Oh, hello, Michael Guest, by the way. 2 for 1.
Davies loose as well to the inside. It is going to be the 17 against in front of it all. Here comes Cook again now to the inside. The 88's tight, and you can see that all of these drivers are trying to push these cars beyond the limit of what they can do right now, as these tires are barely hanging on. 12 laps to go from Kentucky that time through. Pulling away now is Guest as he tries to separate himself from a group that he's been a part of for the last 30 laps or so.
And 3 abreast behind as well. Ray Alfala, Casey Crowan, and Ryan Lowe. They're going to take it 3 wide down the back straightaway. The 21 is going to cycle in line, so it'll be the 14 and the 7 side by side in towards 3 and 4. Action picking up all over both ends of this racetrack as we have hit 11 laps to go this time.
Continuing to tick down lap by lap as we're in the home stretch, 3 wide in front of this group. How about the fight for 10th position? It's Leahy, led by the 27, and a caution flag flies. 10 laps to go in this race, and it's the second yellow of the afternoon.
And it's Sherburne in the 36, slow on the front straightaway. That'll bring out the caution. Take a look at the replay here, and already sideways, the 16 of Overland, a part of that wreck as well with the Letarte Esports number 36. And taking one more look at it here as they come up at a corner number 4, and the looks like the 16 of Overland may have just ran out of real estate and got up into the 36 and brings us our caution with going to be less than 10 laps to go on this restart.
Just too tight. He pushes up, tag the 36. Replay spoke for itself, and I suppose we're somewhat fortunate that that doesn't turn into anything bigger. Sometimes when you get race cars sideways in the middle of the track and it gets ugly, Overland actually caught the car pretty quickly, and Sherburne spun pretty harmlessly all on his own on the front straightaway. So this race now coming down to its very end. Do we see pit stops for the race leaders? Novak from the top spot. He comes down to pit road. It is going to be wholesale pit stops for everybody. Top 5, top 10. Is the strategy call going to be 2 tires or 4?
I think 4 tires has to be the call here, just the way this race has ran out. I think as long as the run as everyone just had, there's no way you can make 2 tires work. And I think as well, Evan, I brought it up a little bit ago, restart inside of 10 laps to go. Historically in this series, these are the most aggressive restarts, the most aggressive time for restarts. I think we are very well in a likely place for green-white-checkered action here tonight. I would be very shocked if we make it the 5 or 6 laps all the way to the end under green.
The race off of pit road will see the 6 of Novak defend the race lead. The 37 gets close. Blake Reynolds, though, gets past Jimmy Mullis as the 46 car loses a handful of spots, getting passed by Zelensky and Reynolds. So Mullis will trail to the top end of the top 5, and all those drivers going with 4.
So now it's going to shake everything up in front. And I was about to say prior to that caution flag coming out that Christian Chalner was biting away at the lead, but he wasn't going to be able to get 1.9 or 1.8 seconds in about 10 laps or so under green. But now he's going to have the opportunity to try to take away what would be his first eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series victory. And looking back, and we mentioned this off the top of the show, Evan, 5 races here, 5 different winners. We've also had 2 first-time winners in this series happen right here at Kentucky. Corey Vincent in 15 and Robert Hall back in 2012. So it sets up for a guy maybe like a Christian Chalner, maybe Blake Reynolds to go to victory lane in this race and maybe kind of continue that trend here at Kentucky, albeit we haven't been here in a while. But Zach Novak has looked strong all night long. It's going to be hard to beat this 6 car.
So as we reset and get set for a run to the end that'll see just a sliver over maybe 6 or 7 laps to go, this final portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Herculiner Truck Bed Liner. The tough comes easy. And with all the drivers in agreement that tires were needed, with the amount of laps that were left in this race, this is shaping up to be an exciting and exhilarating race start, because for all that we've talked about with the green flag racing that we've seen tonight, Randy, which has been great, the pit stops, the strategy, which seemingly had Zach Novak getting set to take the race win tonight, now going to have to defend a lot of hungry hounds behind him. We've been talking about how much tire wear we've seen tonight, how much, the tires and the speed therefore has fallen off, and how abrasive the racetrack is. But that didn't change one thing about these cars, and that is the restarts are still wide open, and you saw it on that last one. 3 wide, multiple rows deep. That was racing just after pit stops 50 laps into the race. This one's going to be inside of 10 laps to go. You have seen nothing yet, and hopefully, with a field that still sees 36 on the lead lap, they can all make it through this dash to the end. As a couple of cars get waved past the pace car with the lights off, we get set to go back green.
Remember about 70 laps ago after we came off of a restart and these guys basically went completely nuts? Now we're going to be inside of 5, take that 6 laps to go, coming to this checkered flag run. Things are about to get dicey. We saw 4 wide after that last restart. I think this place can handle 5 wide, and we saw 4 wide a little bit ago as well. Things are about to get crazy, and that's why I would be a little bit shocked if we end this under green and don't see the first GWC in series history. But regardless, they're lined up. The 6 car has been quick, but Novak has not been the quickest car on the short run. The likes of Challoner, Reynolds, and Zielinski behind, I think, are a little bit better, and that 46 of Mullis, he's been quick too.
And some things that don't change. 4 laps to go is still the marker. It is no longer the point of no return, but if a yellow comes out inside of the final 4, it will push us into overtime for green-white checkers. Of course, as well, if you get to the white flag, none of that matters. Zach Novak had a 2-second lead 5 laps to go. Now he's going to have to hold them off 6 more laps from Kentucky Speedway as we look for the green flag into the restart box. There goes the 6 car. He'll open a couple of car lengths as we speed to turn 1.
It's a great restart for Zach Novak. Waited for that green flag to come out and waited for everybody else behind him, and now they're boxed in for position 2 on back. Here comes Blake Reynolds to the inside. Reynolds going to pick up position number 2.
Oh, they're spinning in the back.
Caution, there it is. It's problems in the back of the pack. A lot of cars involved. Ray Alfala is up and over. Nicholas Shelton is tumbling in turn number 2. And a big issue that the replay will show started with, get this, 4 wide action in the center. You see that massive sheet metal. It all starts with the 79 car trying to make a transition down in front of Alfala. There was just no real estate there. The 21 and the 79 is where it starts, and then they go back up the hill, collected by a few more, and 2 cars end up on their lids.
Yeah, big incident there in towards 1 and 2, and that's going to see us not quite in GWC zone yet, I don't think. We should get, I think, 1 more restart without it. So things are going to be tight here regardless, as very quick yellow here. We've not seen a race end under yellow all season. Of course, with the green-white checkered, increases the likelihood of that not happening as well.
And this will bring us into the point where now they are all going to be these dashes to the end. Everybody is obviously rearing to get back going, Tim, because the lights are on top of the pace car. I had to double check to make sure we weren't going green because they're all still 2 wide, but in fact we still have to wait a few laps for this race to restart. This may come down to an unofficial green-white checkered if it ends up at 2 laps to go. Again, this is the only scenario with the late race yellow in which we could possibly see a 1-lap shootout, which has always been exciting and interesting, but with the lights on top of the pace car right now, if they go out next time through, it would be a 2-lap dash.
And we saw that restart. Zach Novak waited until the last possible moment for that green flag to come out, and he mashed the gas. Everybody else behind him battling for position number 2. And I think that's probably the smartest thing that he could have done. But now do you change it up at all, coming down to what would be a 2-lap shootout or potentially a green-white checker to finish off this race? If you're Zach Novak, you kind of got to be on pins and needles right now. If you're Blake Reynolds, you want to win your first race in this series to the outside. Christian Chalner's going to be on the outside. Jimmy Mullis has been to victory lane before. Taylor Hurst has been there before. And keep in mind, Taylor Hurst has had a horrendous season. He's 39th in points out of the 40 drivers that have run this series this season. So Taylor Hurst wants to get up here, get on the wheel, and at least salvage something. It's a long road to hoe to get up to that top 20 and get himself locked into this series for 2020. But you better believe that Taylor Hurst is going to be digging here on this restart to try to get a little bit better than what he currently is in position number 5. There's lots of stories here within this top 10, and I'm sure it's going to change before we see that checkered flag fly.
And all eyes are on the iRacing.com pace car, this time through lights stay on. So as we take lap 132, this one is going to push, I believe, into extra distance.
Yeah, that's looking like what we may go. It'll be interesting to see, because if the lights go out next time, that would give us a potential 1-to-go situation. With this being such a new thing, Evan, it's actually really interesting because, of course, you, me, and Tim, none of us we've never seen this on the sim before, and of course not in this championship. It's not cropped up yet. So, and of course, an awkwardly timed caution, to be sure, has us a little bit of not sure exactly which way it's going to swing, but we could see a one lap restart here, bringing it to the checkers, or we might be in GWC territory as well.
Thinking it'll be the green-white checker, but unless these drivers as well have, in the course of their practice sessions, thrown some yellow flags out in the service to see how the sim would respond, this may be the first time in the 10-year history of this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing series where we see a race go into extra distance. And of course, that would be surprising for all these drivers, a learning experience for them, for the teams, the spotters, the crew chiefs, talking them through it, making sure that everybody is absolutely up to snuff on how this should play out. Assuming that we see the lights go out on top of the pace car here, we are into green-white checkered territory, and the lights are out. So the race has been extended for a green-white checkered finish, and we come to the green flag the next time by.
So we'll see what happens here with Zach Novak. Where does he bring them down? Does he bring them down slow again and then mash the gas? Does he leave as soon as the pace car comes off and leave everybody in his dust? What does Jimmy Mullis do? Obviously, with that 6 car, if he can get a good start, Jimmy Mullis would be a prime contender to get that second place position if Blake Reynolds can't be up on the wheel on the outside. This one is going to be exciting. I can't wait to see who comes out on top of this one. And if we do have another caution flag and it precipitates another restart, we'll see what happens there. Look at that field, though. Lots of cars still on the racetrack. Lots could happen here as this pace car gets ready to duck off in what will be history in this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing series, regardless of the way it turns out.
Last restart, Zach Novak waited a long time to go. It gave him a good advantage. But he is going to have to hope that he could make it last 2 laps, because for the first time in series history, it'll be a green-white checkered finish tonight for the virtual Kentucky Speedway pace car down. Zach Novak holds him at bay, puts the right foot down, green flag back in the air, 2 more laps to go.
Attempt number 1. Remember that they get 3. If they make it to the stripe, this restart will be official. In towards turn 1, the 46 of Mullis closes on the back of Novak, but can't quite get there. The whole field stays about 2 and 3 wide. None of the 4 wide shenanigans we saw last time. Down the back straightaway, Mullis has a run.
They got to make it a half a lap to be able to get to the white flag. If they get to that point, they're going to race this one out. It's Novak. He leads Jimmy Mullis side by side for third behind, with Reynolds on the inside, Hurst on the outside, looking for the white flag.
They're going to get the white flag here. Final lap, the 6 of Zach Novak, Jimmy Mullis, and Taylor Hurst. Clean and clear. The battle is for 4th. Keep an eye on that 30 car of Reynolds as he pokes his nose to the inside. Your top 2 clean sailing down the back straightaway.
Zach Novak will work 4 car lengths for the final time at turns 3 and 4, and with a record 3rd win this season, going to become just the 10th driver in series history to get 3 wins in a single season. Zach Novak, final time to the start-finish line, takes the checkered flag and wins the first ever green-white checker tonight from Kentucky.
What a run there from the 6, and I think after that opening stint where the 18 was so dominant, I think you can say the fastest car tonight definitely won. Novak in the 6, he had the strategy right, he had the pace in that 6 car, but what a top 5 we've had. A lot of unusual names that we typically see: Zach Novak, Jimmy Mullis, Taylor Hurst, Christian Challoner, and Blake Reynolds. Not a lot of the usual suspects inside of that top 5, and I don't think there's much other way you'd want it after what was the first GWC in series history. Zach Novak will pull down on towards start finish, burn it down with a couple of the drivers that make it possible, and do all the work with him as they celebrate on start finish.
3rd win for his Roush Fenway Racing Ford Mustang this season. Backing up wins in the season opener at Daytona and one just a handful of weeks ago from the Kansas Speedway is his 5th win in his career. That will bump him up to a tie for 7th all-time in series history with PJ Sturgis and Keegan Leahy. And obviously, Roush Fenway enjoying this trip to victory lane as he gets the job done yet again, and the celebration will continue now back the other way.
And looking at the standings, and we'll look at that a little bit later on in our post-race show, Keegan Leahy 20th, Ryan Luza 24th. Blake Reynolds came in 3rd in points. Blake Reynolds finishes in position number 5, so a lot to gain, and maybe not necessarily gaining on that top few, Evan, but trying to get himself a little bit of insurance for that top 8 bubble, and I think Blake Reynolds did it here this evening. Big stories here throughout, but congratulations to Zach Novak. What a run.
Let's take a look top to bottom at tonight's unofficial race results. Zach Novak gets the win, a margin of 0.2 of a second atop Jimmy Mullis in that 2-lap run to the end. Taylor Hurst comes home in 3rd with Christian Challoner 4th and Blake Reynolds rounding through your top 5. We will go trackside to chat with all of them in just a few moments. Nick Ottinger in the number 6 spot goes up 15 on his night, and Bobby Zelensky could just never recover from getting stuck back in traffic. Still a good night as he comes home in 7th position. Behind him, Benjamin W. Nelson gets the P8 this evening. Cordy Vincent comes home in 9th spot, and rounding out your top 10, the number 8, that's Michael Conti.
Logan Clampett just barely outside the top 10 position, number 11. Garrett Lowe in 12th. Brad Davies in 13th, started up front and came home with a top 20 finish. Michael Guest in 14th. Kane Cook in 15th. Guerrilla in 16th in that Jim Beaver Esports car. Got Brandon Cattell, led some laps here under green earlier tonight, finished in 17th. Malik Ray in 18th. Casey Kerwin in 19th, and Keegan Leahy came in as your point leader. He'll finish 20th.
You start going down to some of the cars that really had rough nights. Cody Bias actually up spots from where he started, finishes in 21st. He rolled off 31st. 22nd for Ryan Lowe. He actually went up plus 15 as well. Jarl Tien in 23rd. Ryan Luza in 24th. That's really the big talking point, as close as he was to your points lead. Phil Diaz in 25th. Chris Shearburn 26th. Dylan Duvall 27th. Eric J. Smith 28th, with Ashton Crowder 29th and Casey Tucker in 30th. But outside of that, some stories down here as well. Brian Schoenberg 31st, Chris Overland 32nd, Logan Crest 33rd, Adam Benefield 34th, with Jake Nichols, Nathan Lyon, Nicholas Shelton, Ray Alfala, and Timmy Hill rounding out the 39-car field. The 21's woes continue here at Kentucky.
Yeah, with the exception of Timmy Hill, I mean, all those cars were in this one at the end. We didn't have any DNFs up until the very end there, but that's a look top to bottom at your Race Spot TV full race results. Let's head down to eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series Victory Lane, where we are stood by with the driver of the number 6 Ford Mustang, Zach Novak, your race winner tonight from the virtual Kentucky Speedway. We're with him now. Zach, congratulations. A 3rd win for you on 2019, as you guys are obviously feeling it this season, and you park it at victory lane once again. Congrats.
Thanks, Evan. That one felt really sweet. First off, I just want to give a big shout out to my guys at Lockdown Racing. Taylor, Jimmy, and I worked really hard on this thing. I gotta give a big shout out to an unnamed individual for their help this week. They put us in the right direction, and we really needed to work on our speed after Chicago. We struggled a lot, and we knew we were better than that. So pointed ourselves in the right direction, and then we ran away with that. And setup was just on rails all night. We struggled a little bit in the first run, but we got it fixed up after pit stops. On that heat cycle, the car was just stellar in traffic, and me, Jimmy, and Taylor ran away with it. That last short run at the green-white-checkered was a little sketchy, but we got it done.
It was the first one we've ever seen in series history, so maybe some questions about how it would have exactly played out. We didn't know if we would actually get pushed into overtime or if it was just going to be a 2-lap run to the end like always, but it ends up playing out quite as I assume you would have liked, and that was get a good jump out early, and those drivers were never able to get to you, and you had the caution flag come out there. This race was done, 2-second advantage, all locked up. How nervous were you coming to the restart there, knowing that the restart prior to that, which was nearly 75 laps prior, but around lap 50 when we saw that restart, 3-4 wide up front, they just couldn't get to you this time. Then what was the difference?
Well, that first start after the caution with about 10 to go, I tried blocking Blake, and I think I could have held him off in a 3. We had the caution halfway down the backstretch. And that last restart, I just got a really good jump out front, and he didn't jump out for it on the back straightaway, which I wouldn't have been surprised if he did, but that just shows the team effort we have at Lockdown Racing, and we put a lot of time into building these cars, and we all care about each other's success a lot, and it's just awesome to get a win again for them and Roush Fenway as well and all their partners.
We saw the 3 of you doing the burnouts on the front straightaway. I know anytime you're in victory lane at this level, it feels good because there's no guarantees that the opportunities will present themselves again in the future, so you're certainly taking advantage of that. But I think aside from the checkered flag itself, the points for the race win, huge for you guys tonight, because coming into this evening, it was only a 12-point advantage back to the playoff cut. This gives you a good boost with 3 races left in the regular season.
Oh yeah, this is huge. We were kind of in this position 2017, my rookie season, where we needed some good runs to end the regular season. And struggled here through the mid portion of the season, I guess you could call it. We just really didn't have that speed that we needed at Chicago. Sonoma, we were okay, but for the most part, I haven't really lived up to what I needed to do to be in the playoffs. That's for Kansas, really. So to come out here and win again and do this well just as a team is really important to me, and it shows that we belong at this top level, and it shows that all the hard work that you spend hours and hours and hours every 2 weeks and how hard you have to work to win these races.
So far, statistically, the best season of your career, but I know you want to build on that career best finish of 7th of the points from 2 weeks ago by making a serious run in these playoffs. Tonight was a big step in the right direction for that, Zach. We'll let you get out of here, celebrate with the team. Before we do so, anybody else you want to say hi to?
Yeah, again, I just want to thank all my guys at Lockdown Racing, Taylor and Jimmy again, Logan Sheets and Brandon Cobbinger. They did awesome tonight. This race felt a lot like Kansas with that last pit stop going the way it did. We executed that excellent. So big shout out to them. I want to thank my family and everything they do for me. They support me. They watch the races every 2 weeks. They let me pursue this as something I want to do for a lifetime. Hopefully we can transfer into real NASCAR, but we'll see how that goes. Just big thanks to everybody at Roush Fenway, Acorns, Wyndham Rewards, Oscar Mayer, Performance Plus, Motor Oil, Ford, everybody, iRacing, Race Spot, everything you guys do makes it special.
Well, tonight was a special night as well. The first ever green-white-checkered finish in series history. It's your name that is in victory lane, Zach. We always appreciate your time. Congratulations on the result. We'll catch you back again in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Evan.
A great result tonight for the driver of the number 6 machine, and he talks about those teammate cars. The 46 Jimmy Mullis coming home tonight, P2 is trackside with Tim.
Yeah, he got to celebrate on the front straightaway after that race is all said and done with Zach Novak. But Jimmy coming home with position number 2 with the way the season is gone. You've had a great season so far, but kind of quiet. Second top 5 finish of the year. Walk us through this evening. And we were coming down to the end of the race, about 10 laps to go. Caution flag comes out. What was going through your mind when you saw that caution?
Well, first off, I just want to thank my guys at Lockdown Racing for a really, really great race car. I messed up in qualifying pretty bad. As you can tell, they both started up in the top 10, and I had to come from 17th, so put myself in a hole, but got lucky early with a yellow and got out front and led some laps, which was really nice. We needed the bonus points for that. And then there with 10 to go when we got that yellow, I was actually really happy to see it because I felt like I might have a shot at getting it to Zach, but I ran out of time there at the end. So, but yeah, like I said, really good car, and ran really good all night. So not really any negatives tonight.
And of course, the history being made here. We mentioned the first ever green-white checker on this series. Walk us through that experience, and could you think you could have got Novak maybe if we had another green-white checker finish and set him up and been in second place for that?
I think there may have been a chance if I was on his outside, but I just knew down the back I had a pretty good run, and I could have taken it to the inside, when we were coming to the white. But I knew that the top was just so dominant that if I did give it up, then Taylor would probably get to my outside, which would have ended up giving up way more spots than I needed to. So that's kind of why I stayed in line and just, rode pretty much. But yeah, wouldn't have hated to see another green-white checker, that's for sure.
We're down to 3 races, Pocono, Michigan, and Bristol, to get yourself into the playoffs. After everything cycles through, you're still 9th in the point standings, but only 6 points behind Nick Ottinger going into those 3 races. What's the mindset, and what's it going to take to get yourself into the playoffs?
I just got to keep working hard on these cars, keep finding speed, and try to have 3 more top 5s is really what I need to really secure anything or really try to go out here and win a race. That's what I really need. So that's what we're going to try to do. It's gonna take some hard work and stuff, but I think we can do it. Long road ahead, though. Still 3 races to go.
You mentioned the Lockdown Racing teammates. Who else is on this Richmond Raceway Esports and SimSeats car that makes it happen each week to get you to the racetrack?
Yeah, huge thanks to Richmond Raceway and Richmond Raceway Esports for all they've done for me this year. Couldn't have been drafted by a better team, honestly. Thanks to SimSeats, Sunoco Racing Fuel, Velocity Micro Gaming, you guys for doing the broadcast, PEAK for supporting the series, and all they do for us, NASCAR, and also got to give a big thanks to my guys that were helping me out with strategy calls and stuff tonight, JD Laird, Jordan Churchill, and Will Cooley. Without them, definitely wouldn't have been there at the end. So yeah, just thanks to everybody tonight, and again, thanks to you guys for always a great broadcast.
There's Jimmy Mullis coming home in position number 2 and inching himself just a little bit closer to a playoff position with now 3 races to go in this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series season. And I believe Randy has caught up with a guy. It's great to see him back in the top 5 here, Taylor Hurst in the 74.
Yeah, and we're talking about the fact that some drivers are having sort of a revolutionary run tonight in the side of the top 8. Taylor Hurst comes into this race 34th in the points, finishes 3rd. Taylor, I know for you it's really a run for top 20 at this point. This podium finish here tonight at Kentucky, that's really going to leapfrog you up a lot of cars here tonight.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm a little far out, though, to making the top 20, but, I mean, that's the ultimate goal for this year with how my seasons went so far, but this is definitely a good turnaround, and I needed this one for a little confidence and everything because this build hasn't really suited me very well. And it's really cool to see Zach win, my teammate, and Jimmy second. 1, 2, 3 for LDR tonight. It was awesome. We really figured out a good package for this track, so we'll see if we can carry that on to upcoming tracks and whatnot. But this is a little bit different track tonight than what we've been racing on, so a lot flatter and whatnot. But yeah, it's good to see the front.
And talking about the middle of this race before I get to the end of it, I see a handful of drivers talking in some chats, doing some post-race conversation, people really discussing the way the weather changed and how it really altered the racetrack here today. We had, a couple times clouds really swung over the racetrack and dropped the track temperature, 20, 30 degrees really while you guys out there were running and trying to keep heat in the racetrack in some ways. How did that affect the cars? We saw the 18 of Zielinski. He was quick when the sun was out, then he got buried in traffic. The track, those sort of the overcast conditions kind of swung through. He got buried in the mid-pack. How much did the track changing really change the cars and change the handling of those race cars tonight?
For us, our handle didn't really change a whole lot, but our car seemed to be a little better in the cold whenever the track was cooler for me. And I actually expected the opposite coming into this race. I expected our car to be really good on a hot surface, but whenever it got cold, those guys, I don't know if they were tight or loose because it was hot, but we kind of motored by them there in the middle of the race, and it was pretty surprising because those guys had some really good long run cars, and I figured they'd be coming back, but we kept pulling them on the cold track in the middle of the race. So it was interesting to see how much it changed back and forth. It was pretty cool to see our qualifying session be about the same as the race, so we kind of knew what to expect there.
First time this season as well, and actually first time in series history we've seen the green-white-checkered come out. Were you surprised how clean that green-white-checkered restart was, considering all the fiasco that happened on the restart before?
Yeah. But overall, everybody did a good job tonight. I think everybody raced clean and just kind of left all the mess behind them for what we've had in the past with those short runs and whatnot. But yeah, it's good to see the track change as much as it did.
Well, thanks for joining us, Taylor, and congratulations on a big third-place finish tonight that really, really, really put in an awesome finish here and is really going to help you in the points. Before we let you go, who gets it done for that number 74 car with the JDR Graphics logo on the side of it?
Yeah, obviously JDR Graphics, he got me a nice-looking car out here, and he always does paint some really nice cars, and obviously Zach Novak and Jimmy Mullis, we all finished 1, 2, 3 tonight. It's a big accomplishment in the series, and they put a lot of laps in, do a lot of work on these cars with me. So thanks to them, and thanks to David Rattler and Brian LaPrade for being on the box with me tonight. They did a good job. Good calls in the pits and good changes.
It's a tongue twister of supporters on board that number 74 of Taylor Hurst, but as much as he may struggle getting the words out, they make that race car fast, and he comes home inside of the top 3 here this evening. Next driver we have is the number 37 of Christian Challoner, and he stood by once again with Tim Terry.
Well, Christian coming home in position number 4, but I want to ask you about that caution with 10 laps to go. We asked some guys before what was going through your mind, but you were in second place when that caution flag came out, albeit about 2 seconds behind. So what were you thinking when that caution flag came out with about 10 laps to go?
Yeah, the JTG Doherty Scott Chevy was super fast today. It was an amazing car to drive. That's the best car we've had all season, bar none. I can't thank my guys enough for working on that. Ashton Crowder, Dave Siltman, Trevor for spotting, Dallas for the strategy, and Alan for the streaming. It was an amazing race for us. It's great to actually be back there on pace. I'm a bit disappointed that we didn't get to keep that second because I feel like it was completely locked on, and we might even have been able to get back to Zach at the very end of the race. So it was unfortunate to drop back to 4th, but I'm glad we kept it straight and we got we got that top 5 that we've been missing out on the whole season. We keep saying that we can get it, and we keep saying and we keep trying, and we're finally there, and hopefully this will be huge for us going forwards.
Green-white-checker finish at the end. Did you anticipate it to be as, I don't want to say calm, because I don't think that's the right word, but did you anticipate it to be as it was, or did you anticipate it to be a little more crazy on the first green-white-checker attempt in the series?
Well, we had those 3 lockdown cars lined up on the inside lane, so it actually kind of worked out quite nicely because we knew that they were going to work together, and we knew those 3 on the inside were just going to go, and that meant that we didn't have to deal with a horrible 3-wide scenario going into 1. So it worked out pretty much exactly as we thought. We got to the outside of Blake. We got literally all we could then. There's no one to restart like that. You can really time or beat 3 guys working together like that. Fourth on that restart was really our limit, and I'm really glad we were able to get that.
You go in 11th in points into these next 3 races. 3 races to go, 23 points out of the bubble unofficially after we leave Kentucky this evening. What do you have to do to put yourself in playoff contention at the end of the race at Bristol Motor Speedway?
If I'm honest, I haven't even considered the playoffs for about 5 or 6 races. I've just been working on this idea of we'll slowly move forward, we'll get top 10s, we'll eventually get top 5s, and maybe we'll even have a shot at it like we did tonight. After, say, I think Texas, the playoffs, I completely shelved them. I'm amazed that we're that close, to be totally honest with you. I think if we get those 3 top 10s like we're hoping to do, then maybe there's a shot at it. But honestly, we're trying to get back there in points, and if we get there, we get there, and if we don't, well, I think we gave everything we had.
JTT Jordy on the side of this race car. Who else makes it happen for you to get to the racetrack each week?
I think I mentioned him a couple before, but Scott Products for the sponsorship, and I'd just like to say a big thanks to JTG for picking me at the start of the season, and this whole time we've kept in communication. I keep saying, like, look, we're almost there. We're knocking on the door. We keep finding things. We keep moving forwards, and finally we're actually able to bring home a result and really show that actually I was a good pick, and that we really are a good team and a good group of guys that we got. Like I say, Trevor Edwards for the spotting is absolutely amazing. It's so strange now if I don't have a live spotter, because he just does such an amazing job in these races, and the same goes for Dallas and Alan and what they do in the background. And I'd just like to give a shout out to Ashton Crowder and Dave Siltman, because they worked on this a ton with me, and it was unfortunate for Ashton. He had a bit of an issue earlier in the race, and I think that kind of put him back there, but he deserved a lot more, and he really puts a ton of work in, and he's a great driver, a great teammate, and yeah, I feel bad for him what happened tonight, but I really appreciate the work he does with me, because that's what got us to that 4th place tonight.
And a strong 4th place run it was. Christian Chalner coming home with another top 5 finish this season. And Randy, I think he's going to be one to watch as we work forward towards that playoff cutoff. But speaking about another driver who's had a great season, how about this number 30 of Blake Reynolds? You've caught up with him.
Yeah, we moved to a much more familiar accent as we catch up with Blake Reynolds. And Blake, it was so fun watching that number 30 car work today. I know you were super happy to, have a new paint scheme running here on that Dillon Esports car, and you really put it to work coming home with a top 5. Talk me through your day.
Yeah, we just worked really hard right there at the end. We worked really hard for the last 2 weeks or so just trying to get this right. This is one of the toughest places to set up for some reason, this package. It was just crazy how much work we had to put in to get this right. But yeah, most of my race is just spent trying to chase the handling of my race car, and I think that's what mostly attributed to my finish here tonight.
And I'll talk actually a little bit more about why this racetrack is so unique compared to some of the 1.5 milers. A lot of the people who may not race as much on the sim, maybe they just catch the broadcast on the iRacing Esports Network, and even real NASCAR fans in general. The term cookie cutter gets thrown out, but of course every single one of the racetracks has sort of their own unique little bit of flavor, and this one a little bit flatter. I know a lot of people talk about, and being on the old asphalt, it's very, very abrasive to the tires. Tell me about how that really affects your approach to the track from a setup angle.
Well, you can't make it too loose, because it's really hard to chase it when it's that loose. So we kind of went toward the snug side. That's usually my driving preference. But yeah, the bumps are extremely tough at this track, and like you said, the tires are abrasive, so we're falling off maybe a second after like 7 to 10 laps or something like that.
Pocono, Michigan, Bristol, the trio tracks we have coming up. How are you feeling on those 3?
Not too sure. I haven't tried them with this package yet, but Michigan's a good track for me. Bristol, I've almost never raced there, just hardly ever. And then Pocono, we'll see what we can get. Just got to focus on just prepping great cars to bring to the track every week.
Thanks for joining us, Blake, and congratulations on getting that number 30 Team Dillon Esports Chevrolet into the broadcast booth here tonight for the interviews. Before we let you go, who gets it done for everyone at that organization?
Well, Team Dillon Esports for letting me, work on the paint scheme. John Dragonetti, he did a fantastic job. He not only did my car this week, he did Ben Nelson's car. Both cars look great, and especially, I got to thank Ben Nelson. He, I saw those clips right before I joined in here. The VR camera he had was amazing. I caught that in the mid, just viewing back. But, great partners at Team Dillon, including Beneath Apparel, Digital Ally, StockX, GoShare, and Elevate.
Well, there he was, Blake Reynolds here, driver of the number 30. He rounds out our top 5 interviews here tonight. Evan?
Well, as always, big thanks to the top 5 for giving us a little bit of time post-race. Senior winner Zach Novak, Jimmy Mullis, Taylor Hurst, Christian Chandler, and Blake Reynolds. 11 races now complete in this 2019 campaign, and a lot of interesting movements in the championship standings as we move out of this race. Some of them around that top 8 playoff cutoff, but as well, Tim, some of them down towards the top 20 cutoff just to stay in this scene. But here's the main picture that you want to look at, and this is the championship battle. Keegan Leahy pulls a little bit further ahead of Ryan Luza, but look down there in position number 8. Nick Ottinger still last driver in, but Jimmy Mullis is just 6 points out with 3 races to go. It's a razor-thin margin.
Yeah, close from 11 to 6 when it comes to that bubble position, but for the most part, those 2 up top didn't have spectacular nights. 20th and 24th for Keegan Leahy and Ryan Luza. Everybody else around that bubble position had a decent night. There's not one driver there that really had a horrible night. We saw Michael Conti, we saw Nick Ottinger battling within the top 10 for most of the evening, them coming on one side of the inch or the other, but most of those drivers there had a decent night, which is going to tighten the vice a little bit. Brad Davies now has some work to do, but just outside of that, we mentioned Christian Chalmers back there about 23 points out. So anything is possible when it comes to these last few races. And you look at Bristol being the final race. You look at Pocono next week, wide open spaces there. And then you go to Michigan as well. So there's 3 racetracks that could very well throw a curveball into the plans. But if you're up on the top of the scoring pylon there, you feel safe. But look at those 3 racetracks. I don't think any lead is safe right now.
And that's exactly what I want to highlight as we step away here, Randy. It's Pocono, Michigan, Bristol, all very different racetracks. Then to even into the playoffs, Darlington, Indianapolis, the Roval again, having 4 of our last 5 races on intermediate racetracks. We're not going to see another one until October.
Yeah, you look on the left-hand side of your screen and you see all the sorts of tracks you would typically see on any iRacing league, really, in any of the NASCAR-style sort of private leagues that are run, be it trucks, be it the Xfinity cars, be it here in the Monster Energy cars. It's like, oh yeah, you would expect those as your sort of solid races. Then you look on that right-hand side, and there's a lot of tracks that because people, the league might run 12 weeks, 10 weeks, depending on what the members are doing, just more of a casual thing. Those are a bit of one-offs, like, oh yeah, we'll have a track like this or maybe 2 throughout the season. We've got them all stacked up at the end. Pocono, Michigan, Bristol. Michigan is like the calmest one in there. Bristol's a huge curveball that we haven't seen in the series in a number of years. And then you get to after the playoffs, the likes of Darlington, Indianapolis. The Roval, having 2 road courses on the season is hugely important. And then almost in some ways, you get a little bit of breathing going to Homestead, but of course that's the final race of the season. So if you're trying to race your way for either the championship or going for top 20, that's going to be important. And actually talking about that top 20 fight, really the driver we've been watching struggling outside of that top 20, the 21 of Ray Alfalo, we haven't had him have huge issues tonight. We all saw that. He falls all the way to 27th, 20 points back from the cutoff. And of course the cutoff for your top 20, it runs all the way to Homestead. That doesn't end at Bristol. So issues and worries still coming from the 21 and 3-time not having a great year.
Only saving grace is that battle does have 7 races left in it as it runs to the end of the season. But what we're focused on for the drivers up front is the number 3. 3 more races to go in the regular season as round number 11 falls into our rearview mirror. As always, have to thank all of the people who make these Tuesday night broadcasts possible. For our director, Hugo Louise, for Alex Hort on the cameras, Andy Warner, Simon Grossman for the broadcast graphics package, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Tim Terry, Randy Jenneth. Want to thank all of you for tuning in and congratulate Zach Novak, a 3-time winner now in 2019. For more series info, log on to www.enascar.com. And we'll catch you again in 2 weeks' time on Tuesday, July the 23rd for the virtual Pocono Raceway. That race and every race of the 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series can be found right here on RaceBot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Kentucky, where Zach Novak's your race winner.